Yo, 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 what it do though? Just a baby. You already know, man. Back again with another hashtag Fireside Fridays. And you know what, man? I apologize. I apologize for last week, y'all. I know I was supposed to pull up, show up, do everything like that. But I had to take a little mental break. Me and my fams, the people that I work with, who I've become very, very close to, we decided to take a trip up to the aquarium and the zoo up in Atlanta, and it was really, really fun. I'm not gonna lie. Got a lot of good footage, had a lot of shots. It was a really good time. So I apologize for not being here, but y'all know I am back. So let's just get straight off into it. First and foremost, I don't know if y'all have heard, but there is a representative in the state of Florida by the name of Matt Gaetz who now has an official DOJ investigation into him for sex trafficking, for paying women to have sex with him, and for a whole bunch of other just lewd, nasty sex acts. Yeah, I'm not even trying to make light of it. Like, it's really kind of messed up. There's this guy, I believe his name is Joel Greenberg. He's a tax collector out of Seminole County in Florida. He has already been indicted on about 33 different charges. So he is connected to Matt Gaetz. Um, there's multiple ways. There's this Venmo account that I believe they both have been paying to. It's the same 18-year-old woman at the time. But there was a 17-year-old woman who, or my bad, 17-year-old girl who they had paid to have sex with, and they were trafficking, and they were paying to have her, across state lines and all kinds of just very, very nasty, nasty stuff. And to be honest with you, it doesn't surprise me. But the thing that I don't really like about this, aside from the fact that it's just a nasty predicament for someone to be in, like you don't need to be doing these kind of things. The thing that I hate the most is y'all remember probably like sometime last year, maybe a little bit longer than that, there was all of these hashtag save our children people. They were so concerned with this so-called democratic pedophiliac sex ring that was being ran by these elitists like Hillary Clinton and all of them. And it's not to say that Epstein and Giselle and whoever they were associated with wasn't doing that. I mean, there is still Epstein Island and all this other kind of shit. So I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is they are surprisingly quiet when it comes to Republicans who have done the same things that they accuse their Democratic counterparts of doing. And I just find the hypocrisy in it to be very, very irritating and frustrating. It's like y'all were so adamant about the fact that you knew that these people were doing it. Remember Pizzagate? Yeah, Pizzagate was a part of that, where that guy who thought that there were these children being sold out of this pizzeria in, I believe, Washington, D.C. He went up in there trying to kill people. Yeah, it's actually led to certain things like that. But now, when a representative of the Republican Party is embattled with this bullshit, kind of like Roy Moore was, or kind of like Trump was, or the list goes on of Republican politicians who are just nasty ass people, and they do a whole bunch of things that they should be locked up and they should be called out for, but for some reason they don't on their side. And I really hate that. But I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that Deshaun Watson himself also has a whole bunch of allegations against him. I believe it's up to 22 different women who have said that he has just been a very inappropriate individual during massages. That one right there doesn't seem as clear cut as the Matt Gaetz situation, but I will bring it up so people don't think that I'm trying to be biased or playing on both sides. I do understand that sex assault, sex crimes, they should be taken serious in each situation, each occurrence, each circumstance. So I don't want to make light of it. I don't want to make it seem like there's nothing going on in either one of them. We don't know really too much about what's going on in Deshaun Watson's situation, but we do know that there are evidence linking this person, Matt Gaetz, to another individual who's already been indicted through a whole bunch of different things. And the dude who was indicted from Seminole County, like I think it was reported like over $300,000 of taxpayer money was spent facilitating this dude's nasty ass acts. So I know nasty is the word of the day, I guess. But anyways, that right there is what's been going on. Started, I believe, it broke like last week, I believe. New York Times broke it. And now it's just a whole bunch of other things that are going on. Apparently this dude was like showing pictures of people that he had sex with on the house floor. Like just look, bruh. And then he was he signed, or he was the only one who didn't want to sign on an anti sex trafficking bill. He didn't want to sign or vote yes on a revenge porn bill. So a lot of these things are starting to finally add up, and it adds up to an equation of this dude is just a nasty ass person. So y'all keep an eye on that and see what happens. He has been asked to resign by a couple GOP people, but mainly is on the left, and I truly believe he needs to resign as well. So we will see. A couple weeks back, we talked about gun ownership in the United States. And I want to kind of like expand upon that a little bit more. So I've been doing a little bit more research, and I found out that gun ownership among African Americans was up 58.2% in 2020. And there's a few instances that have caused this. There's a few theories. One of them being that it was the pandemic, so there were shortages of food and household items and toiletries and things like that. So there was a fear and kind of like a shift into a survival instinct and a survival mode that they thought, I might have to protect mines when it comes to people trying to steal because they don't have. So there was this, dystopian, end of world, apocalyptic thought process that might happen in the event that this pandemic gets even worse than it already is. Right. And then there's also the fact that we've seen a uprising in white supremacist terrorist attacks on domestic soil. Right. So we've seen insurrections. Right. We've seen a failed insurrection, an attempt on the Capitol. We remember Charlottesville, Jews will not replace us and all this other kind of stuff. So African Americans have decided that arming themselves in what I continue to call the wild, wild west of America is actually just a natural progression in what you would expect to happen, because there's so many different things that are happening within this. So within the excess or the expansion of the gun ownership among African Americans, there's also been an expansion, I apologize, in black arms dealers, the ones that are selling the ammo, selling the firearms, the rifles, the guns, and everything like that. There's been an expansion in Facebook gun clubs, from like the Huey P. Newton Club. They got different chapters in different states. You got the NAF or the NFAC, Not Fucking Around Coalition, the folks who was up in Stone Mountain trying to tell them Ku Klux Klan members, if y'all gonna talk about it, y'all gonna be about it, then come on and be about it type folks. Y'all remember it's like 1,000 black folks out there dressed in all black, strapped up, beautiful scenery, loved it. And then there's also been a rise in like black gun training classes, shooting ranges, and those kind of things. So I think this is a good thing. I think exercising your right to the Second Amendment, since it is written in the way that it is or interpreted in the way that it is, I think that you should definitely attempt to protect yourself, because you know what they say, you cannot bring a knife to a gunfight. So I think that you should probably have the exact same weapon that the person who's trying to take whatever from you. And I'm not encouraging violence. All right. I don't want that to be what you get from this. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is Miyamoto Musashi has one of the best phrases or best quotes about this, where he says, "It is better to be a warrior in the garden than to be a gardener in the war." Right? So it's better to be prepared for whatever could happen rather than to be unprepared. And that's where I want y'all to be. So seeing things like this about African Americans taking up arms, for their own protection and things like that is something that I think is a necessity. And I'm not against it at all. But I will say this. There was a recent incident that happened on Wednesday. Ex NFL player Philip Adams played, I think, like I said, like 78 games, 5 seasons, 6 different teams. Even played on the Atlanta Falcons, home team. But he ended up killing this doctor named Dr. Leslie, Dr. Leslie's wife, and then their 2 grandchildren. Very, very, very sad. And then he also ended up killing another individual who was working at the Leslie residence at the time. And then he was also able to shoot another individual who made it to the hospital, and it appears their wounds are not fatal. And then in the midst of a police show-off, or whatever you would call that, there was negotiations, and during those negotiations, he ended up killing himself. They found him with a gunshot wound to the head in his bathroom, dead. And when I'm thinking about certain instances like this, whenever it involves like ex-NFL players, the number one thing that I always think about is like CTE. Like, how does their brain chemistry been affected due to the way that they play football? How many concussions did they have? This, that, and the other. And it's not a lone wolf excuse that a lot of people will use for mentally ill or whatever they say when it comes to like white domestic shooters. It's something that I think of, whether it's a white, a black, a Mexican, a Hispanic, which is the same thing, or a different type of ethnicity when it comes to football players, because they all play the same game and they all play it at the same type of level, right? So to me, with him shooting himself in the head, we won't know if it was CTE, but to wonder if that played a part in it. That's something that is just very interesting to me. So yes, African American gun ownership is up, but there are certain instances where this is happening with African Americans having a gun, and I just wanted to bring that up, speak about it, and let y'all know that isolated incidences like that should not be indicative of the idea of black people getting guns for themselves. So real quick, the last thing I want to say about that is it's very interesting that now that gun ownership is going up against with African Americans, you still don't really hear the NRA speaking about that. You don't see them being a more welcoming group to African American gun owners. And I guess that's historical because when Reagan was governor of California, they were pushing the Mulford Act, which whenever the Black Panthers were starting to arm themselves, they were attempting to keep them from being able to do that, to open carry and things like that. So, and the NRA was a part of helping that. So it's like the NRA has never really been welcoming or open arms. But if they're the gun club of America, this, that, and the other, you would think that they would want to be inclusive. But really, they're just a bunch of bitches. So next thing I want to talk about, probably the last thing that I really kind of want to get into is me and my pops. We were talking about these new Georgia voter laws, and he was saying something which made a good point. And he was saying that I think it does a disservice to the civil rights era when we call these Jim Crow bills. And he was saying, growing up in the Jim Crow era, I remember, you would get beat for trying to vote. People were being lynched for trying to exercise their right to vote. So when I envision Jim Crow, I see it as that. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. I could definitely empathize and understand that. And then I told him, to me, what I see is Jim Crow was broken into two different things. There's the Jim Crow culture of that era, and then there's the Jim Crow legislative policies of that era. And what I see with these bills is more leaning towards the policy where you attempt to put suppressive and restrictive measures on people's ability to vote in an attempt to make it that much harder to vote. So, with the poll taxes and the literacy tests and all of those kind of things, it was a very, very suppressive measure to keep a certain demographic targeted at individuals from being able to vote. But what's happening now is not on that same level, but it's still an attempt to suppress the vote based off of certain things that have been pushed in this legislation. So no, it's not the same as when they would just beat you with clubs and water hoses and dogs to try to keep you from not being able to vote. No, I'm not talking about that part. So when we say Jim Crow 2.0, they're basically referring to the fact that these are suppressive measures that are trying to stop people from being able to vote, because more people voting means probably Democrats are going to win, because low voter turnout has traditionally been better for Republicans. So what I want you guys to do is take these laws for what they are, read them for what they are, understand them for what they are, and then plan accordingly. Make it to where you can circumvent any type of situation that's going to come up that's going to try to prevent you from being able to vote. Because I need you guys to understand something. Voting has consequences, okay? So there are things that you need to be cognizant of. So take the time to understand it. Understand, when can you get your absentee ballot, and when do you need to have it turned in, and how can you turn it in? Where are the drop boxes at? What time will they be available for you to actually access them? You need to understand these kind of things. How do you read the ballot? How do you understand how to research this candidate to see if he's actually done the things that he says he's done, and will probably more than likely do the things he say he's going to do? How do you do these things? Those are the things that I need you guys to get more understanding of, more engaged with, more enthusiastic about. We need to get more and more younger individuals ready to fight these fights and these battles. We are the ones who can change this. We are the agents of change. We are the ones who are the future, who are going to step forward, take this mantle, and attempt to do the best that we can. And right now is not the time for political apathy. It is not the time to shrug your shoulders, and it's not the time to give up on the vote, on the right to vote, on the right to fight, and on the right to continue moving forward in a progressive manner. We have the ability to be that change, and we have to do that. Let me get off my little high horse, my little soapbox, whatever y'all want to call it. But real quick, before I get up out of here, man, y'all, I want y'all to keep my dog D.M.X in your thoughts. He OD'd, and it's just not looking too good. I think he was on a ventilator. I think he's finally breathing on his own right now, but he's still in a coma. So look, man, keep him in your thoughts. And I want to end it with this quote that he got from Nietzsche. He says, to live is to struggle, but to survive, that is to find meaning in the struggle. So I want y'all to take that for what it is, and we will be back next week. Love you.